The phone was still warm when she found it. That was the first thing Suyan noticed, not the cracked screen protector, not the blinking notification light pulsing red like a second heartbeat, not even the fact that it was lying face down on a bench at a bus stop in the middle of a Thursday afternoon, as if someone had simply set it down and forgotten gravity existed. She noticed the warmth, as if whoever had left it here had done so only seconds before she arrived, as if they had been watching her approach and slipped away at the last possible moment. She looked up. The street was ordinary. A delivery scooter hummed past. An old woman with a floral cart argued quietly with herself. Students in Daeyeon High School uniforms clustered at the corner, phones out, all of them scrolling the same feed on the same app, laughing at things Suyan had never learned how to find funny. Nothing unusual. No one running, no one watching. She looked back down at the phone. "Don't," said the part of her brain that had kept her invisible for 17 years. She picked it up anyway. 3 hours earlier, Suyan had walked into school the same way she always did, alone, slightly early, head down, earbuds in without any music playing. The earbuds were armor. People assumed you were unavailable. People left you alone. She had been perfecting the art of being left alone since middle school. She was very good at it, disturbingly good. Last week, during a group project in homeroom, the teacher had divided the class into pairs, looked directly at Suyan, and said, "And you can join." She had paused, actually paused, as if Suyan had materialized there only in that moment, as if she had not been sitting in the third seat from the window for 3 months. The worst part was that Suyan understood. She wasn't angry. She was just tired. She wanted to be seen, not famous, not popular in the hollow influencer sense. She didn't care about that, or told herself she didn't, which was almost the same thing. She just wanted to walk into a room and have someone's face change, have someone light up, have the air shift, even slightly, because she had entered it. Instead, she moved through the world like a ghost who hadn't been told she was dead. The Pulse app didn't help, or rather, Pulse was the place where all of her classmates were alive, visibly, loudly, undeniably alive, and Suyan existed on it like a blank profile on a platform designed entirely for the expressive. She had 41 followers. 38 of them were people who had followed her by accident. One was her cousin, one was her mother, one she genuinely could not explain. She had tried everything. She had posted a photo of her lunch, 6 likes, all from strangers, nothing from anyone who knew her. She had attempted a joke about the vending machine being out of banana milk again, which she had rewritten 14 times before posting, and which had received 0 engagement and 1 comment from someone she didn't know that simply said, "Okay." She had even consulted an AI writing assistant, typing, "How do I write a post that makes people feel something?" And the AI gave her a very detailed response that made her feel, if anything, slightly worse. The problem, she understood this, she had cataloged it thoroughly, was not that she had nothing to say. The problem was that she didn't know how to make people want to listen before she said it. It was a social capital problem, a chicken and egg tragedy. To be interesting, you needed an audience. To get an audience, you needed to already be interesting. And Suyan, standing at the bottom of that loop with no ladder, had spent 3 months watching her classmates build empires on Pulse while she refreshed her feed and felt the specific loneliness that only comes from being surrounded by people who are having fun. She was thinking about this when she walked into homeroom and nearly collided with Han Jae-won. Han Jae-won was the kind of person who occupied space more than his body technically required. Not in a rude way, not in the way of someone who spreads belongings across bus seats or talks over people in conversation. He occupied space the way a fire does, warmly, naturally, with no awareness that it was doing anything at all. He was tall, with the particular loose-limbed ease of someone who had grown up being told he was good at things and quietly believed it. He played basketball with the kind of casual precision that looked like showing off even when it wasn't. He was, Suyan's classmates agreed, extremely good-looking, and he seemed almost annoyed by this fact, the way people are annoyed with gifts they didn't ask for and don't know what to do with. He was also, she had recently discovered, a liar, but she didn't know that yet. Sorry, he said, sidestepping her in the doorway with the reflexes of an athlete. He barely looked at her. It's fine, she said, to the air, because he was already past her. Suyan sat down. She opened her notebook. The class filled around her like water, and she sat in it like a stone. At the front, the class representative, Jung-Mi Ray, stood and announced that PE would be held indoors this week due to the field maintenance, and the room responded with a collective relief usually reserved for canceled exams. Mi-Ray was one of those people who had clearly been elected president of every group she had ever joined, from kindergarten group projects to high school homeroom, not because she campaigned, but simply because everyone assumed she would do it and she was efficient enough not to disappoint. Suyan watched her manage the room with something that felt uncomfortably like envy. That's what a social person looks like, Suyan thought. That's what I'm not. Then the door opened again and a boy walked in who Suyan had never seen before. He moved like someone who had recently returned from somewhere very serious. His back was straight, his jaw was set, and he scanned the room with the quiet attention of someone who had been trained to notice things. He was handsome in an angular, complicated way, the kind of face that asked questions rather than answered them. He sat without being directed to his seat, as if he had calculated it in advance. Mi-Ray looked up. Transfer student? Ryu Hyun-sak, he said. Just that. No smile. Suyan wrote his name in the margin of her notebook without meaning to. The lipstick incident happened after second period. In retrospect, it was the kind of small social disaster that defined high school with brutal efficiency. A missing item, a convenient scapegoat, a room full of people looking for a quick conclusion. The lipstick belonged to a girl named Park Da-eun, who had shown it to 3 friends before PE and discovered it missing after. Since Suyan had been the last to leave the classroom, she always left last because she was slow to pack and faster to hesitate, the conclusion assembled itself without anyone really thinking about it. Did you take it? Da-eun asked, not aggressively, almost bored. The worst kind of accusation, the one that barely bothers to perform. Suyan opened her mouth. What came out was the faintest suggestion of a sound, the auditory equivalent of a pencil mark made with insufficient pressure. No one heard it. Several people looked away. And then Han Jae-won, who had come back to retrieve a forgotten jacket, stopped in the doorway. He looked at the scene, looked at Suyan, looked at Da-eun. I was the last to leave, not her, he said. He walked to Da-eun's desk, checked under it, found the lipstick wedged between the chair leg and the desk frame, and held it up. You should look before you accuse someone, he said. Calm, not unkind, but precise. Apologize. Da-eun did. Suyan wanted to disappear into the floor. Later, when Jae-won passed her desk and said, You okay? She said yes, and then, because something compelled her, she said, Thank you. He looked at her. Really looked for a moment. Then he said, What's your name again? She told him. He repeated it back, slightly wrong. She left school that day with the particular disappointment of someone who had been rescued and forgotten in the same afternoon. The phone on the bench was unlocked. Suyan knew she shouldn't. The street, the warmth, the blinking light, none of it was an invitation, and yet she stood there in the cooling October air, thumb hovering over the screen, and told herself she was only checking for contact information in case someone needed their phone back, out of civic responsibility. The Pulse app was open, and not just open, administratively open, in a way that Suyan's profile had never accessed. She was looking at the app's back end, at the invisible architecture under the social surface, where posts lived before they were published and after they were deleted, where anonymous content was tagged with actual usernames, where the entire performance of Daejeon High School social life was cataloged with the unsentimental accuracy of a surveillance system. She could see everything, every anonymous post, every deleted confession, every private complaint about teachers, parents, friends, every crush declared without a name attached. She could see specifically a post made by Han Jae-won 2 days ago, anonymous, now deleted. A video file attached. She pressed play. The video was 22 seconds. It was clearly filmed on a bathroom phone in bad lighting, and it featured a voice, Han Jae-won's voice, unmistakably, though she had only spoken to him twice, singing what appeared to be a ballad with the specific, terrible confidence of someone who doesn't know they're bad yet. The notes missed in ways that were almost architectural. The performance was so earnest and so catastrophically off-key that Soo-yeon experienced the rare sensation of simultaneously wanting to laugh and wanting to protect someone. She looked up. Around her, the street continued doing its ordinary things, but in her chest, something had shifted. She now possessed something that Han Jae-won, the boy who occupied more space than his body required, would very much prefer she didn't have. The question was what to do with it. She told herself she would return the phone to whoever owned it. She told herself she would pretend she had seen nothing. She told herself she was a good person who did not weaponize other people's private embarrassments. She made it almost all the way home before she changed her mind. She found him at the school's back stairwell the next morning, a place she knew from the Pulse back end was his unofficial retreat. Students used it as a landmark in anonymous posts, the way people use coffee shops as meeting coordinates. "Meet me at the stairwell," she had texted to a school email, leaving no name. He came anyway. "What is this?" he said, not unfriendly, cautious. "I found a phone," Soo-yeon said. She had rehearsed this 17 times. "And the phone has admin access to Pulse. And the phone has a video of you singing in what I'm guessing is a bathroom, which, for the record, the acoustics do not work in your favor." The silence that followed had texture. "You're blackmailing me," Jae-won said. He sounded more curious than angry. "I'm proposing an arrangement," Soo-yeon said. Her voice was steadier than she had expected. She had prepared for it to shake, but apparently some part of her had decided to be brave about this specific thing. "I want to be someone, on Pulse, in school. I don't know how, and you do, and I need you to teach me. In exchange, the video stays with me, and only me, and I delete it when we're done." Jae-won looked at her for a long time. "You're not actually going to blackmail me," he said, like he was reading a diagnosis. "You're too nervous." "I'm not nervous," she said. Her hands were shaking. "I'm determined. Those are different things." Another silence. "The Han Jae-won fan club," he said slowly, "is not going to believe I like you." "I'm not asking you to say you like me," she said. "I'm asking you to help me become the kind of person that someone plausibly could." He looked at the sky as if consulting something, then he looked back at her. "I should tell you," he said, "that I'm a trainee with KM Entertainment. Any public arrangement between us could affect my—" "You're not a trainee," she said. The air between them crystallized. "Excuse me?" "You told Byung-ho you were a trainee. He told Dayoon. Dayoon posted about it anonymously." She paused. "I have admin access." The muscles in his jaw worked. She watched him reconstruct something in real time, some version of himself that required the lie, and what happened to it now that the lie was known. "You have an interesting idea of arrangement," he said finally. "It's not my fault you have secrets." "Everyone has secrets. Most people don't accidentally leave admin phones at bus stops." Jae-won laughed, just once, short, surprised. It changed his face completely. For a moment, he looked exactly his age, 17, somewhat overwhelmed, figuring it out. "Fine," he said. The lessons began badly. Soo-yeon approached the two crying girls in the courtyard on day 2. She had seen their posts on the back end, knew they had argued about something, knew they were both miserable about it, and attempted to comfort them through a combination of reasoned observation and what she believed were supportive gestures. They looked at her as if she had offered them mathematical proofs of their grief. "You can't logic someone out of sadness," Jae-won told her afterward, walking beside her at what she was beginning to recognize as his default pace, slightly too fast for a casual stroll, as if he were almost always late for something. "I wasn't logicking, I was empathizing. You asked if they had considered the practical benefits of reconciliation. That is empathy." He stopped walking and looked at her. "Where did you grow up?" She told him. "In a library?" In an apartment. My parents were both scientists. We didn't do a lot of emotional processing out loud. Something shifted in his expression. Not pity, she realized, but recognition, as if he understood specifically that particular shape of loneliness. Okay, he said. Different approach. Forget what you know. Start with what you feel. I feel invisible. Immediately, without planning to. The words landed in the air between them. Right, he said, quieter now. Yeah, start there. 3 things happened in the following week that changed everything. First, Ryu Hyun-suk, the transfer student, began to occupy Soo-yeon's peripheral vision in a way that was difficult to explain. He appeared in corridors at moments that felt slightly too coincidental. He looked at her, not the performative looking of someone making a point, but the careful looking of someone who already had one. He knew her name. He used it correctly on the first try, which shouldn't have felt significant, and did. On the 4th day, he caught her before she fell down the main staircase. Her foot slipped, her stomach lurched, and his hand closed around her arm before the fall completed itself. He held a beat longer than necessary. When she looked up at him, he said, "You haven't changed." "We haven't met," she said. He let go of her arm, smiled, a small, careful smile. "Haven't we?" She thought about it for 3 days. Second, Mireille, who she admired from a cautious distance since September, invited her to lunch. The invitation was simple, casual, offered between classes with the ease of someone who extended invitations constantly and expected them to be accepted. Soo-yeon said yes before she had finished processing the question. Walking to the cafeteria with a group, an actual group, people laughing and arguing about something she didn't follow yet, felt like being handed a costume and told the performance had already started. Mireille was warmer than she seemed from a distance. She had opinions about everything and held them loosely, which Soo-yeon found oddly reassuring. She asked Soo-yeon about herself in the direct, genuinely interested way socially skilled people deploy effortlessly, and socially anxious people spend years trying to learn. At the table, Soo-yeon heard herself talking, actually talking, saying things and having them land, watching Mireille's face respond with amusement and curiosity, feeling the strange, warm vertigo of being listened to. Third, she discovered that Jae-won had asked weeks ago, before she had ever spoken to him, for the boys who bumped into her on the school stairs to apologize to her. She found it in the back end, a private message, simple, direct. She looked upset. Go back and say sorry. Sent 5 minutes after the incident. He hadn't known her name yet. He had just noticed that she was upset and done something about it quietly, without making it about himself. She sat with that for a while. The video competition was Mireille's idea, or rather Mireille's announcement, a 1-minute short film challenge, school-wide, winner chosen by student vote on Pulse. Jae-won couldn't participate publicly. Trainee or not, his face on a school video would complicate things in ways she didn't understand fully yet. Hyun-suk, it turned out, was actually a trainee with an actual company and had just been given clearance to be seen publicly, which explained why his Pulse presence went from 0 to everywhere in approximately 4 days. Soo-yeon was on her own. She had never made a video in her life. She had never posted anything that more than 3 people had engaged with. She had never, in any medium, successfully made a stranger feel something. "Stop," Jae-won said when she said this to him. They were at their stairwell. Their stairwell, she had started thinking, which was a detail she noted without examining. "Stop what?" "You made me laugh the first day when you told me my singing was architecturally misaligned. You made Mireille laugh at lunch on Tuesday. You made Byung-ho, who doesn't laugh at anything, actually laugh when you described the vending machine situation." She blinked. "You're funny," he said, like it was obvious. "You're strange and precise, and you say things in ways that nobody else would. That's not a liability. That's you. That's the whole thing." The stairwell was very quiet. "You're not supposed to say things like that. This is a transactional arrangement." "I'm aware of what it is." "Then why?" "Because I'm asking you to teach me how to be seen, and the answer is you already are something. You just keep looking in the wrong direction." She looked at him. He looked back. Neither of them said anything. The video she made was 3 minutes long, which was 2 minutes over the limit, and she submitted it anyway. It was filmed on her phone at the bus stop where she had found the pulse phone, and it was her talking, just talking, about the specific loneliness of being in a room full of people who are laughing at something you don't understand, about the vending machine always being out of banana milk on Thursdays, which she had decided was either cosmic punishment or a scheduling error, and either way, she had started bringing her own. She talked about what it felt like to be invisible. She talked about it precisely, honestly, without flinching, and the precision made it funny in places and unbearable in others, sometimes simultaneously. She posted it at 11:47 p.m. By morning, it had 4,000 views. She found out about the comments from Mireille, who appeared at her desk before first period with her phone extended and an expression of unquestionable delight. "Have you looked?" she said. "Have you seen this?" Suyan looked. The comments were full of people saying, "This is me," and "I thought I was the only one," and "I sent this to my friend who lives across the world because she needs to hear this," and from one anonymous user she would never identify, "Thank you for saying it out loud." She sat very still for a moment. Then she went to find Jaewon. But Jaewon wasn't where she expected. The corridor outside the gymnasium was crowded in the way that preceded drama. Too many students standing at irregular angles, the particular hush that meant everyone was listening to something no one wanted to be seen listening to. Suyan pushed through the edge of it and found Hyunsuk and Jaewon facing each other in the corridor. Hyunsuk's voice was very quiet. "I know you're not a trainee." Jaewon said nothing. "I've known for 2 weeks. I wanted to see if you would say it yourself." "Why does it matter to you?" "Because she trusts you," Hyunsuk said, simply, without heat, "and I'd like to know why." The crowd hadn't dispersed. Suyan understood with a lurch what was about to happen. The lie, public, unwinding, the architecture of Jaewon's social standing about to be stress-tested in real time. She had seen this in the back end, fragments of it in anonymous posts, the gathering pressure of a secret that had exceeded its container. She stepped forward. "He lied," she said, loud enough for the corridor to hear. Both of them turned to look at her, and I knew from the beginning. The air shifted, felt everyone recalibrate. He wasn't a trainee. He was just a person who said a thing that made people interested and then couldn't figure out how to take it back. And then he spent 6 weeks helping someone else learn how to be real, which is a lot harder to fake than being famous. She looked at Jaewon. "I was going to ask you to confess it yourself, but you were going to anyway. I found the draft." The Pulse backend, the confession video, half finished, time-stamped 3 days ago. Jaewon stared at her. "You have admin access to the app," Hyunsuk said slowly. "Someone left a phone at a bus stop. I've been trying to figure out whose it is." A beat. "It's mine," a voice said behind her. She turned. The girl standing there was a second year she vaguely recognized, small, watchful, with the expression of someone who has just found out exactly where her buried things were. "I dropped it 3 weeks ago," the girl said. "I've been waiting to see what would happen." The aftermath was not clean. Aftermaths rarely are. Jaewon posted the confession video himself that afternoon from his phone, with his face showing. He said he had lied about being a trainee because he was afraid that without it, he would be ordinary, and ordinary had always felt like a smaller life than he wanted. He said he had spent 6 weeks watching someone else become extraordinary by being exactly herself, and he thought he should try that too. The comments were, by any metric, overwhelming. Mireille called him brave and meant it. Hyunsuk said nothing to anyone, but Suyan noticed him watching Jaewon's video 3 times in the library, and the expression on his face was the specific, complicated expression of someone updating a long-held belief. The video competition award went to Jaewon for the confession. Suyan's video came second. She didn't mind. She had already gotten what she wanted from it. Not the views, not the ranking, but the comment at 2:36 a.m. from someone she would never meet who had said, "I thought I was the only one," and the particular opening that created in her chest. 3 days after the corridor. The stairwell. Late afternoon, the school mostly emptied, October light going golden on the landing. She had come to return the phone. She had tracked down its owner, the second-year girl, and completed that loop. She had come to the stairwell out of habit, she told herself. Just habit. Jae-won was already there. "How long have you been?" "Not long," he said. 10 minutes. "Why didn't you text?" "I didn't know how to start." She sat beside him on the stairs. They sat in the particular comfortable silence of two people who have argued in corridors and made each other laugh and held small secrets carefully and arrived, somehow, here. "I'm sorry I blackmailed you," she said. "You were never going to release the video." "I wasn't," I agreed, "but the threat was real. My intentions were coercive." "You were desperate." "That's not an excuse." "No, but it's context, and context matters." He looked at her. "You taught me that, actually. The whole thing about starting with what you feel. Context is, you can't understand a person without it. You're using my lessons against me. You taught me well." The light on the landing shifted. Outside, a bus passed, the ordinary machinery of the city continuing. "Hyunsuk is going to keep watching you," Jae-won said carefully. "He has a history with you that I don't. He knew me when I was 12. He knew the version of me that didn't know how to speak yet. People prefer versions of people," he said. "I know." I turned to look at him. "I prefer you." The sentence arrived without her planning it. She felt it land. Jae-won looked at her for a moment with the expression she had noticed across weeks that he wore specifically when something surprised him in a way he welcomed. Open, careful. "I know who you are," he said quietly. "I know the parts you don't post about. The vending machine, the earbuds with no music, the way you draft things 17 times and then delete them. I think you're the most interesting person I've ever had to negotiate with." "That's a very specific compliment." "I'm a very specific person." She laughed. He laughed. The laughter overlapped in the stairwell and went somewhere pleasant. "Okay," she said. "Yeah?" "Yeah," she said. "Okay." She didn't reach for his hand. He didn't reach for hers. That would come later, in some ordinary hallway moment, unremarkable in its timing, perfect in its casualness. What happened now in the stairwell in the October light was simply that the space between them stopped being a negotiation and became something else. Something that didn't need a post. Something she didn't need 4,000 people to see to know was real. Later, weeks later, months in the shorthand of a relationship that had assembled itself from blackmail and bus stops and bad singing, she would think about what she had learned. Not what Jae-won had taught her specifically, though she thought about that too. Start with what you feel. Context matters. Your strangeness is the whole point. She thought about what she had figured out on her own, sitting in corridors and stairwells, watching social lives assemble and dismantle with the helpless fascination of someone who had spent too long outside the window. Everyone was performing something. The question was whether the performance was for them or for the audience. The people who seemed effortlessly social, the Mireis, the Jae-wons in their public iterations, the Hyunsuks with their careful watchfulness, they weren't less afraid. They were just more accustomed to moving while afraid. The fear was the same. The motion was the choice. And she had chosen, badly at first, with coercion and admin access and a video she had never intended to weaponize. Then better. Then finally, honestly. The phone she had found at the bus stop, she still didn't know if it had been left there by accident or intention. The second-year girl, when she returned it, just said, "I wondered who would pick it up," and smiled and offered nothing else. Suyan had decided not to investigate further. Some mysteries were better kept open, some things you were meant to find. She thought, I was invisible because I was waiting to be noticed. The noticing had to start with me. She thought, the phone was warm because the world was warm, and I had been too busy apologizing for occupying space to feel it. She thought, I should text Jae-won. She did. He responded in 4 seconds, which told her everything she needed to know.